I'm not as enamored with Hitchcock as everybody else is, nor am I that enamored with, nor am I overly enamored with Psycho. Fuck Janet Leigh in Psycho, but Anthony Perkins is my fifth. Janet Leigh can hold a flickering birthday candle to Tony Perkins. Okay, but we're talking about performance. I mean, the fact, in real life, Janet Leigh is only okay in that movie, and she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and Anthony Perkins wasn't nominated.
He wasn't?
No, he wasn't. Fuck Janet Leigh. So you can't even say, oh my God, I can't believe Anthony Perkins wasn't nominated. And then you realize, oh, it's worse than that. Janet Leigh was. I think he was held back by the times that he worked. I think his movies, I normally don't like the third acts of his movies. Yeah, but I do think that oftentimes, this is just my opinion, they peter out, and he's not quite able to end them like, the way I think he would have if he was the age he was in the 50s, in the 70s. I think I would appreciate his films more. I think he's held back by the Hays Code. I think he was really truly held back by the Hays Code. Now, at the same time, he was a clever little bugger. All right, so because he could use the Hays Code against their own selves from time to time. And in particular, it was I'd said in the piece, I did feel the 50s morass of filmmaking held him down. Hitchcock really couldn't do what left to his own devices, I think he would have wanted to do. By the time he could do it in the late 60s and the early 70s, he was just a little too old. But if he could have gone where he wanted to go in the early 60s and through the 50s, he would have been a different filmmaker. So there's actually another bit in Psycho that actually is closer to something else I wanted to talk about. I think there's one moment in a movie, and I think it's a profound audience moment. In Psycho, there's the moment where Anthony Perkins is disposing of the car, and he dumps it in the lake, and it's sinking, and then it stops. And then you see the look on his face. Okay, just me describing it, that's a nice bit unto itself. The profound part of it is the audience wants the car to sink.
Yeah. he's eating a snack as well, isn't he? Chewing on a nut or something?
He's eating a snack. But you want him to get away with it. You don't want it to stay there. You don't want him to get caught by the cops. You are willing the car to go down in the water. You're worried for him. You're worried for Norman Bates at that moment. You want him to get away with it. You want him to dispose of the dead body of the heroine of your film. Fuck Janet Leigh. Richard Franklin had everything going against him when he did the Psycho 2 sequel, because in a strange way, back in that time in the 80s, Psycho was even more revered than it is now. And Hitchcock was definitely more revered than he is now. By the 80s, Hitchcock was treated like some sort of cinematic saint. So the idea of remaking a Hitchcock film, or the idea, even though there was quite a few of them out there, The 39 Steps had just been remade, The Lady Vanishes had just been remade. Yeah, well, the idea of remaking, but especially sequelizing, people talked about it like sacrilege. I mean, to the degree, I think I remember on the Tom Snyder show, a three-way conversation between David Cronenberg, Jeanette Schwartz, and John Carpenter. And they're talking about the state of horror films. And then they mention, what do you think about the Psycho sequel coming out? And they were like, oh, I wouldn't touch that. I wouldn't touch it. Well, you're going to try to be better than Hitch? Forget about it. I did not feel that way. One, because I'm not as enamored with Hitchcock as everybody else is, nor am I that enamored with, nor am I overly enamored with Psycho. But I was enamored with Richard Franklin. He was my favorite of all the Australian directors. He was the Australian Hitchcock. Customers love that stuff. So whenever we got a Hitchcockian type of movie, but there was a new movie, we always pushed it. Well, Road Games was one of the best. So the idea that Richard Franklin was now he's got the opportunity to do the second story. And I met Richard Franklin at the time that he was making the movie. I asked him, I go, what are your ambitions for the movie? I mean, it does seem like everybody wants it to fail. Everyone, like, they resent it. They think it's sacrilege. How are you handling that? He goes, well, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, but hopefully when they see the movie, they'll feel different. I go, well, what are your hopes for it? He goes, well, my hopes for it is that you like the first movie and that you'll like the second movie. And maybe 10 years from now or 15 years from now, you'll think about a scene from one or the other one, but you won't exactly remember which one you were thinking about because it's just all the Norman Bates story. And that's what he did. He didn't just interject, okay, Norman Bates, the killer, is back. He made it the Norman Bates story. And Norman Bates was the actual hero of the story. And I think, not only do I think Anthony Perkins is even better, as great as he is in Psycho, I think he's even better in Psycho 2. I think it's one of the great lead performances in any horror film ever made, his performance in Psycho 2. I mean, it's just a magnificent performance. You bought a ticket to see a boogeyman, and now, from the moment he shows up with Robert Loggia, who normally is so abrasive and is like the coolest psychiatrist in the history of movies in that movie. You're like, Robert Loggia? Yeah, really, he is. But when the minute they show up and they talk and everything, all of a sudden now you are rooting for Norman. You're rooting for Norman to keep it together. You're rooting for Norman to be sane, to be happy. You're actually rooting for him to be happy. And now you don't want any of the horror stuff to happen. And me and my friends, we liked it so much that, we got into a passionate discussion about it afterwards. And you know what? He would have been okay. If that damn bitch would have left him alone, he would have been okay.